Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI Show, episode 2 of our next season. Pretty excited about today. Like, I even have my name down there. Look at that. How about them apples? First off, please tell us where you're coming from. I'm monitoring the chat over to the side, just side eye to the side, side. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from, while I share with you what we're actually doing today. Time for my pandemic purchase, my Wacom tablet. Hold on, do I have a sound effect for that? Wacom tablet. Wacom. Wow, that was really loud. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn it down. Wacom tablet. Wacom. All right, time to share my screen. Let me turn this down a little bit. No sound. What am I sharing here? This is the kind of quality show that we have here. Yeah. Boom. I have so many screens. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Okay, today on the AI show, let me explain a little bit how the AI show works if you're new. So we try to be professional here, and we pre-record some shows, because some guests, they might be new, and I want to make sure that they're not nervous about tech or whatever, because this show is actually live. So we usually have guests come pre-record if they're nervous, but sometimes, and today is one of those times, we actually we record it live. And then because this is like the live show where you get to ask questions and we get to be a little bit more unplugged, we actually reuse the actual here. Let me go full screen here so you can see me. We actually, oh gosh, I'm so bad at this. Here, let me. There we go. We actually live record a pre-recorded session that we then put for the suits. And today's one of those days because Marco's awesome, and Marco, he's awesome. So we're gonna do it actually live, but you're gonna see us in this one kind of do some things that I do for pre-records, so that when I have to cut it up later, there's like a pristine thing. So you're gonna see that today, where we do a live show. So if we mess up, we'll laugh. We'll be like, we'll have to cut that out later. You know what I'm saying? And so that's one of the cool things about the AI show that we're able to do something like that. Okay, so back to what we're doing today. Let's see. Is this yes? So number one, all about agents. We had an all about agents last time, but this time it's Marco. And if you know Marco, he loves to show cool stuff that I haven't seen. I've seen a lot of stuff, but there's some stuff that I work at the more of the underneath part in our product group, and Marco works on some of the coolest, newest agents that I haven't even seen. So we're gonna put a little asterisk by that with Marco. So that's what we're doing there. And then number two, Prompty vNext. Remember, there was a project we started. Man, what is up with this? This we need to tighten this up. Prompty vNext. I'll show you what the next version of Prompty looks like. Not much has changed. We've just added some stuff. Are doing some experiments. So yeah, so that's what that's all about. So here we go. Let's see, where is everybody coming from? That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today. By the way, all right. So let's see where people are coming from. Let me move my screen here. Boop. There you go. Now I can put this down and look at y'all. Looks like hello, Paul. Welcome, my friend. I'll just do a few call outs here. And then we have Paulo Cesar Ramirez Silva from the beautiful country of Mexico. My mom's from Mexico, so I'm also Mexican. And then we have our friend here, Shahjahan Ahmed Shah from London. Beautiful city. I love it there. By the way, this is live, and so if you have questions or anything, please make sure to actually ask us questions in the chat. So I'm excited for this. All right, Marco, you ready? All right, he's coming. Here we go. Hey, bud.
All right, it's on. Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. How you doing?
How you doing? I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. I'm gonna turn the music off. But like I was telling people, you're one of the few guests, you and a couple others, where we actually do it live. The whole thing is live, and so if you see us be like, we're gonna take that out in post, you know what's going on. So how you doing, Marco?
I'm feeling good, man. How you doing?
Great. And you know, people don't know this, but our group is this week. We get to meet together, all of us, because we all live in different places. So I'm excited to see everyone tomorrow.
That's right. So I'm actually here in Redmond. Normally I live in Oakland, California, but I'll be here. You know, I'll be seeing you tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yes.
At least maybe today.
Yes. I have a demo to give tomorrow too. You do too, right?
Me too. We all got demos. We all got stuff to show, man. And I tell you, yeah, we got some stuff here today. We're going to have a good time with it. It probably is going to work.
And if it doesn't,
we're gonna find
you'll
out.
get the live version, and then in post, it's going to look beautiful. All right.
Post. You know what? You know, even these things I'm going to show today, even if they go off the rails, that's instructive too.
Hey.
So I think we keep it. Anyway.
Hey, I like that. Wow, look at my like this is a good camera. Do you see this? Yeah, there you go. All right, so we're gonna start this like a official show. So I'll do the whole like all about Azure AI agents, and then just pause. Why does it look like this today? I think I changed something inadvertently.
What's right? I don't know, man. I was actually thinking you kind of look younger today. Hey. I don't know what it is. Yeah. Something you did with your hair.
It's the camera. It adds a few pounds and de-ages us really well. So, and the joke is, hey, how many cameras do you have on you?
Oh
my gosh. Okay. All right. So we'll get started. We'll do the official version, and then so just look straight at the camera. I'll do the opener, and then you'll see the clip, and then we'll start like the official one that we'll cut out and then put on the other place. You ready? All right. Here we go. You're not going to want to miss this episode of the AI Show, where we talk all about Azure AI agents with my friend Marco Casalaina. Make sure you tune in. Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI Show. We're talking all about Azure AI agents with my friend Marco Casalaina. How you doing, Marco?
I'm doing well.
Fantastic.
How are you?
So for those that don't know you, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Marco Casalaina. I'm VP Products of Core AI at Microsoft, and my Silicon Valley title is AI Futurist.
Ooh. We should all have Silicon Valley titles. I could be like demoer guy. No, that doesn't sound as good.
No, you can do better than that.
I could do better than that. So as we're talking,
AI
the AI show.
How about that?
I like that. So let's talk about today. We're talking all about Azure AI agents, of course. Why don't you give us like a little mini definition of agents? I've heard a lot of different definitions. It's kind of like how you feel about it, number one, and then why don't you tell us what we're gonna see today? Go ahead.
All right. So an agent is a framework that sits above one or more models that allow you to do complex and long-running tasks and can take action on your behalf. That's my one sentence.
Holy cow, I love it. That's a really good one. Can you give us examples of where these agents are actually doing some awesome stuff? Like what problems they're solving, and then you can maybe show us how they're doing it.
Well, I got something that I bet you don't have yet, actually, that most Microsoft employees don't have yet, but it is solving a problem for me. I have the built-in scheduler agent to M365 Copilot. I'm not going to show that today, actually. I mean, I could have, but today's not the day. But what this agent does, and I'm in the early test group of this thing, well, it schedules stuff. And so, whereas even today, I think most of you can ask M365 Copilot, like, hey, when is Seth Juarez available for a meeting? And it'll give you some idea. But this one, if I say, make me a meeting next week with Seth Juarez, it will literally make the meeting. Like, it'll put it on your calendar, on my calendar, and that kind of thing.
So that's cool, because like that's the kind of task where, like I've always been saying, and this kind of goes to what you've been saying, like any of the low powered brain tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis, it feels like these agents are going to be able to do it for us.
That's right. And in fact, I'm going to have one of my agents do just such a thing today. So one of these things that is just this kind of grunt work that I don't really want to do. And now I can make these agents do it for me. And that's where it starts. I mean, I think those are the kinds of things that you want to automate today.
Yeah. So let's get into the meat of what we're talking about today. Can you give us like a blurb on the things we're going to show? So we could do this one of two ways. It's up to you. You can give us a summary of, here's all the agents I'm going to show you and the problems they're going to solve, and then we can do them, or we can do one at a time. What do you want to do?
Well, I mean, I'm going to have to show them kind of back to back to back because they're made to be that way. So what I'm actually going to show you here today, well, it's going to be a set of agents working together, actually. So there's a little story here, and this story has to do with the new Fabric Data Agents, which starts with the Fabric Data Agent. I kind of passed through an Azure AI agent in Azure AI Foundry as well. And then at the end of it, what I really have doing the grunt work is what's called a CUA, a computer use agent. So we're going to have some fun with that.
Okay, so I've heard about why don't you tell us about the data agent, Foundry agent, and then CUA? Describe what those are and then what problems they solve, so people can be like, oh, can they be grounded in what it is? Sorry, I had to. So they can be grounded in what it is that we're looking at. So let's start with the data agent, and then Foundry agent, and then we'll do the CUA.
All right, well, this will be a little bit more clear when I'm actually showing it to you. But the Fabric Data Agent basically allows you to define a subset of your data. So Fabric is Microsoft's lakehouse solutions, where you throw all this data in there of all types. And the Fabric Data Agent is relatively new. We actually just announced it a couple of weeks ago. And what it does is basically you select a subset of your lakehouse. You say, hey, this is the subset of data that you can talk about, and it can talk about it. It's a conversational agent that you can ask it questions about your data across all these different data sources, as I'll show in a little while. The Azure AI agent that's in Azure AI Foundry is a general purpose agent. And so that is, you can use that for all number of things. And in this case, I'm kind of using it as a go-between between the Fabric Data Agent and what comes downstream of it, which is my CUA, which I'm going to have doing the work. That is the computer use agent. And the computer use agent, CUA, well, it literally uses a computer, and you're going to see it.
Well, I'm excited to see it. So should we get started? Well, can we share your screen, and then let's take a look at it?
Yeah, let's do this. Okay, give me a second here to actually share my screen. Okay, I have two screens here, so I'm putting this on the bigger screen, which I am hoping that you can see now.
I am bringing it up. There you go. We can see it.
All right, this looks promising. Okay. So now I am in the Fabric agent. This is what I described earlier. I mean, what I have here, I have this big lakehouse full of data, and I have given it a subset of my data set over here. So you see that this is my big lakehouse, but I'm not letting this thing talk about everything, just some of the tables in here. And so I've asked it this question: find my customers who have late deliveries and show their names. Now that sounds like a simple question on its face, but if you look at what the agent actually did to get here, it's not nearly as easy as it seems. And so it had to analyze the database first, and it actually had to do two different queries to two different types of data sources, not even just two different databases, because this first one is a SQL query over here, and this second one is a KQL query. And so this little question with this little answer was actually much more complicated than it seems underneath the surface. But the agent kind of abstracted that for me. If I hadn't opened up that little thing, you never would have known that this was as complicated as it is. So this is the Fabric data agent. And like I said, this allows you to have a conversational interface over a data set that you choose. Well,
So
now
hold on, before we go there, this is actually really cool because I think like you said it like fast-ish, and people maybe like it went like and once I started thinking, I was like, wow. So you basically asked a free form question, and the question actually involved some substrate sub things like multiple tables / data sources that it was able to aggregate over, and that's what happened. Is that right?
That's right. Now, I should stipulate that behind this is what's called a semantic model. You know, a lot of you have databases, and in these databases, you'll have these columns like Q underscore SRCTC or something that nobody knows on its face what that column means. And so, as part of setting up this data agent, you usually give it a semantic model that says, this is what this column means and what specifically it is. So, for example, if I have a column that is like LTDLIV or something that's late deliveries, then my semantic model would say LTDLIV is late deliveries. And so it's telling Fabric, just like it would tell a human, this is what this means.
I see. So before, so one of the things that you do is when you're setting up tables in Fabric, you can give it semantic information about these tables. But then when you scroll down, this is the part that was surprising because it's showing you its work, right? Is that what this is?
That's right.
So describe what we're seeing here, because it was actually 2 queries that it did to be able to put this together.
Right. So in this case, and it's funny because sometimes it does these in the reverse order, this agent, but this time it went to my customer database, and it looks like it just queried my entire customer database or my customer table here. And then from there, because I specifically asked it for customers with late deliveries, and not all of my customers have that. And so it did this KQL query, and that is a separate type of query language. In fact, you can probably see down here what the specific query is. So you see, this is not SQL. It's like this kind of piped language. And then it correlates them together. And so in the end, it puts together the table that it got from my customer table and the late deliveries to produce the result.
And the other thing that's cool is that I like how there is this thing where like it's kind of showing its work too, which is way cool. Is that new, or tell us about that?
Well, I mean, it didn't really do that before, but then again, the Fabric data agent is really just announced. I mean, it only just became this like a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, it's kind of new. Actually, the whole thing is new.
That's cool. But in general, like one of the trends that I'm seeing, and maybe you can speak to this too, is there is a trend now where you can actually start to see the agent's work as it goes from the actual providers. Is that something that you're seeing in sort of the later things?
I think that's a best practice in general, you know, to help people gain some amount of trust in these agents. You have to show them what it's doing. Now here you'll notice, I mean, it's kind of hidden beneath this thing, right? So the vast majority of users are not going to know what a KQL query is or a SQL query is or how to read those things, but there's going to be some subset of users that will look at this stuff and be like, what did this do? Is that like what I would have done? You know, and you're going to want to be able to check this to make sure that it's doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is spectacular. All right, so what's the next one? Because you're telling me that you're kind of, I think it feels like you're going to chain these together, or you're okay. Cool. So what's the next one?
Now I could chain them together programmatically, of course, but I'm kind of doing it manually so I can show you all what I'm doing here. So now I have this. Now I'm in Azure AI Foundry, and in Azure AI Foundry, I have this other agent. This is my Fabric agent, and I'm going to actually kick off this query because it does take a moment for it to run this stuff. So I'm going to kick off this query, but you'll notice at the top here, I have connected this to my Fabric data agent. You know, when you set up an agent, you don't program an agent in the traditional sense. Rather, you give it powers and it figures out how to accomplish the task with the powers that you give it. And those powers are broken up into knowledge powers. And here I have a Fabric data agent as a knowledge power, and action powers, things that it can do. So there's things it can look up and things that it can do. And in this case, I've given this agent only at the moment things that it can look up, only because I didn't really chain these together in a hard-coded way. You're going to see in a minute why. But that's kind of what I'm doing here. So I've given this agent, this agent in Azure AI Foundry is kind of general purpose. Like I said, it can do all kinds of actions. It can do all kinds of lookups. It can search stuff on the web with Bing, and it can search stuff in Fabric and SharePoint and all these things. And you can connect it to whatever action you want. And there we go. So I have got a result now. That's an interesting address. Roster.
Nice. That's so. This is the interesting bit that I think took me a while, because I mean, yeah, if you don't know, Marco and I, we work together, and you know how skeptical initially I was of this agent framework, but the more that I understood like what's happening underneath, the more it made sense to segregate, like converting the language into actions and knowledge as a separate piece of the actual execution, which invariably as a programmer made me feel kind of weird, but in a more intellectual sense it makes sense, because you're actually converting what the customer intent is into actual actions and knowledge and execution. So you want to say a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, now I think we need to stipulate that with any agent, they will make mistakes. They are non-deterministic, and sometimes this one makes mistakes too. In this case, it did not. Actually, it did just fine. But now the output of this agent, by the way, it looks like instructions. It is instructions, because this is actually a prompt for my next agent, which we'll get to in a moment. But anyway, I mean, yeah, these agents are a convenient way for it to do something that requires some amount of reasoning. And in this case, it requires some reasoning. It's not just, I'm not even just looking this thing up like I was doing in Fabric. Now I'm looking this thing up with the intent of making a prompt for my next agent to act on. This is the go-between agent, and that's the idea here. That's the reason.
I see. So in effect, just to follow with the narrative, you showed us the Fabric agent, and then what you did is you went into Azure AI Foundry, made a new agent, and then pointed that agent to use that other agent. Is that right?
That is correct. That is correct. And then we're going to do another one in a minute. We're going to have another.
And that's the cool thing. Like, and I think this is an important part to pause, because now that like an agent can become a source of data or another action, you get this sort of implicit routing when you're orchestrating agents, where you can have one agent that points to another agent that may point to another agent, and a bunch of agents that are working together. That actually changes fundamentally how we think about computing stuff. Your reaction to that? Am I off base here?
No, you're totally on base with that. I mean, that's true, and that is absolutely going to happen. The thing to bear in mind, as I did say before, is that these agents do make mistakes, and when you chain these agents together, the error is multiplicative. Yeah. So just bear in mind that you're going to want to have these kind of mitigations for common mistakes that the agents might make. And you can only really find that through evaluation. And at Build, at our Build conference next month, we'll be announcing our new agent evaluation tools and things like that you can use to determine what are the rates of error, what are the common failure modes, what kinds of things do I need to make.
Yeah, and we actually had some folks. Chung was on one of the earlier shows where he showed this, which was awesome. Make sure you look at that one's already. All right, so now that we've done the data one, now that we've chained it to the AI Foundry one, let's go into CUA. What's CUA, and should people be worried?
All right. So I'm kicking this off already, because this is a CUA. This is a computer use agent. And this one that I'm running right now literally controls an entire computer. Now, one thing to note about computer use agents, CUAs, they're not that fast. So it's going to take a second for this thing to go here. And now it is moving here. And I don't know if you can still see me on the screen here. I am not touching this computer in any way. So that hands are up here, nothing here. So this computer, or anyway, this agent is operating this computer. And on the right-hand side, you can see its thought process here. So it is selecting the link for the grievance form, which I hope will work over here. And if that doesn't work, then I have another CUA that I'm going to bust out here. Oh, there it goes. And there's a cookie pop-up. Oh, no. Like, is it going to be able to figure out the cookie pop-up?
Is here. Oh, wait. It's able to, right. It looks like it's accepting it.
It got past it. Yeah, it figured it out. Now, yeah, so the way that this thing works, I mean, this type of CUA, the one that I'm using here is called the Responses API. This is provided by OpenAI, and it's available in Azure OpenAI today. And it controls an entire computer. It does this using computer vision. So it is sending these screenshots back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And this is a Linux VM that I have it controlling right now. And it can do anything on this VM. I mean, I have it controlling the browser right now, but it can do anything. Now, the date picker, it's in the date picker. Date pickers are the bane of computer use agents. They confuse the heck out of computer use agents, but they confuse humans too. And so it is trying to navigate itself to March, whatever the day is, I think March 24th, 2025, which is when the delivery was supposed to be. And it's sort of getting there. Let's see what it does here. Now, one of the challenges with this type of computer use agent is that it makes what I call pixel mistakes because it's using computer vision. Sometimes it misidentifies the bounding box of where it needs to click on something. And date pickers, it did it. Like it made a mistake, right? It did February 24th, 2025 instead of March. And it noticed its mistake. If you look at the thought process, it's like, oops, I made a mistake. And it's going to see if it can fix it now. So I don't know how it made that mistake, but there it is. And like I said, this is what I was saying earlier. Even when it goes off the rails, these demos are instructive because it really gives you an idea of how these things are working. Now it will fix itself and it's going to get there now. It looks like it's okay. It's got the right date. Now hopefully it'll submit it. Sometimes it asks me for permission before it submits it. Let's see if it's going to do that. Oh, it did it. And we're done. Right. So we got there.
Wow. So so it looks like it's agent requires user input. So what's going on here?
So at this point, it has indeed completed the task, and it's kind of coming to me and being like, "Hey, are we good? Like, are we good to go?" Now, I have set this the way that I program this is I sort of set it for autoplay. So by default, it confirms at every single step. It's like, "Are you okay if I fill in this field? Are you okay if I fill in this field?" And that was massively annoying. So in my version, I changed the SDK a little bit to autoplay like this, which I think got checked into the main SDK. So if you all use it, you can use it like this. But it does still ask for confirmation at big steps in big areas, sometimes before submitting a form. In this case, when it thinks it's done and it's waiting for my confirmation that it's done, and so on.
This is really cool. So let me ask a couple of logistical questions about the CUA. It looks like the computer use agent, or CUA as we've been calling it, how do you point it at a machine? How is it pointed at a machine to do stuff? Tell me about how that actually works. I'm not sure how it works.
Okay, so there are a couple of different ways that this works, but the way that it generally works is using some kind of remote desktop protocol. There are two in usage today. This one that I am using here is using VNC. So VNC, Some of you might be familiar with it. It's kind of the old school one that we all used to use. Not necessarily the most secure in the world, but it does work. And in this case, I'm connecting it to a local VM, so it's fine. The other one, and you'll notice, by the way, that Copilot Studio just released support for this same computer use agent I think on Friday or on Thursday. And we'll maybe post a link for that here in a little while. But and what they are doing, they're spawning a Windows VM and they're connecting to that Windows VM using RDP, which is literally standing for Remote Desktop Protocol. And it is a little bit more secure. That's what we use to connect to Windows 365 and other things like that. So there are a couple of ways, but fundamentally, the way this thing is working is that you have a kind of intermediary application here, just as I do here, that connects to this computer with some Remote Desktop Protocol and controls it in that way.
I see. So it's effectively tied into a VM, or no, it's not VM. It's tied into the actual protocol that connects to a remote computer, and it issues commands through RDP. Is that right?
That's right, or VNC, whatever protocol you have it set to use. But yes, I mean, it's kind of like the way that you would use a remote desktop. It's just doing the exact same thing.
So I want to bring this link up here for the computer use agent, so folks can take a look at it. I just found the link here for this. You can go to learn.microsoft.com. It has ENUS. You don't need to have that in there. I should have cleaned that up. Azure AI Services, OpenAI, how to computer use agent. And so when like when would be a good time to use this agent?
When would be a good time to use
Yeah,
this agent?
like when.
Well, a good time to use. So, like, this is a good time. Like this kind of a scenario where, in this case, let's just say this Ludus Dryden delivery company, right? Let's say I have no API by which I can set my agent to like programmatically report a late delivery. Like the only way that I can report a late delivery is to literally go to their website and fill it in. And that's my only option. When that's the case, especially if you expect the page to change somehow every time, or some reasoning is going to be applied here. And it's not just going to be robotic. Otherwise, you just use RPA, robotic process automation, like Power Automate or something like that. So when you expect things like cookie pop-ups to appear and things that are going to confuse your RPA, this is a good place to use a computer use agent. And it's worth noting, by the way, a CUA, computer use agent, is not a replacement for RPA. Actually, they're friends. So in reality, most RPA vendors now, like our friends at UiPath, for example, are actively in the process of integrating this into their robotic process automation so that you can use them together, so that the RPA, can go down a deterministic path. And again, that the advantage of the deterministic path is that it doesn't make mistakes. It doesn't try to do something out of the box there. But if it gets confused, then it can pass control to the computer use agent and say, here, figure this out and get me back on track. And it does it. So RPAs and CUAs are friends. So many
Yeah, one of the
acronyms.
things that was concerning to me about this is it felt like if we have a computer that's using a computer to do a computer thing, it feels like the abstraction model is off. However, what you're saying, and this is the part that's interesting to me, is that the computer use agent is really good for plugging the gaps for legacy systems together with RPA is what I'm sensing. Your thoughts on that?
That's what I'm talking about exactly. And it doesn't have to be a website. As I mentioned, and there are different types of computer use agents. I don't think we'll have time to go into the other types today, but there are different types of computer use agents. This one can control an entire computer. And so that can be legacy Windows apps. It can be like green screen applications, it can be really anything that is running on a computer. And yes, that's exactly the point of something like this, is to be able to control legacy applications.
And that's the cool bit, because my initial allergy to it was, oh my gosh, why do we need a computer use agent when, like, it feels like there's a fidelity. It feels like I'm riding my back on the bike of a truck as it's going to go faster. But you're saying, no, this is like, it's not even about cars anymore. We're working with like a mainframe system, and we need to click on a thing as part of doing work. And that's where this really shines.
That's right. That's right. Especially, again, if that is in an application that you expect to go in all different directions, that is not that easy to program deterministically your way through it.
Awesome. Well, all right. Anything else to summarize before I put some links up?
Well, I mean, a couple of links have already gone up. So I have this same demo in video form, in which I also give some glimpse as to how I built it, which is kind of fun because there was a fourth agent involved here. I used an agent to write.
Oh my gosh. And you'll have to come back and show us that. Absolutely. So let me get the YouTube link here. 1 second.
That one's already posted, actually.
Oh, cool. It's already good. So that one's already out there. But I want to put some links up here for folks if they want to take a look at the Fabric Data Agent. There's a cool little thing on that, which is awesome, right? Because the thing that you showed was, like, I'm very good at SQL. I'm maybe not good at KQL, but with agents at this point, it doesn't matter. You can try it out and see what goes on. So that's the Fabric Data Agent. The second was the Azure AI Agent Service that you showed off. There's a link to that. And then the last one that we talked about is the computer use agent that you can do that. And then in the show notes, we'll add all of the videos that you had so folks can take a look at that. Well, dude, this has been awesome.
Always a good time, man. Great
all right,
to see
same to you. My friends, thank you so much for watching. We're learning all about Azure AI agents. My friend Marco, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care. Good job, Marco. I don't think we even need any edits on that.
Sweet. Yeah, I didn't think so. That came
All
out pretty
right.
clean. Now wait, I thought you had a second section here that you were doing the
Yes, yeah. So
prompty
what
stuff.
happens is, so what I do is, and for folks watching, what happens is I need to create a package that then goes on Microsoft Learn, and that is a type. So the thing that we did, you know, how I got all of a sudden formal-ish. So that actually goes into Microsoft Learn so that people can see this later. But this show is actually unscripted and live, and so we do other stuff. So the prompty is for the second half of the actual show. But I want to make sure we get some questions here.
Right. Well, so I saw a few, and actually, yeah, we know we're still on air.
We are. We're definitely starting. So what happens is that thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this thing down. I'll edit it, and then I'll send it off to Rhiannon. She's awesome. She's one of our producers, and they'll put it on Learn, just that little tight package. What happens is generally, Marco, people pre-record those things, and then we play them, then we ask questions. But in this case, it was not. We're doing it live, and so we did it.
Yeah, we're doing it live. We're doing it live, and I'm glad that we did, actually, because, you know, in my YouTube video, it actually went through the delivery thing perfectly, right? It didn't get confused on the date picker, which it does about 50% of the time.
Yeah, but it auto-corrected itself, right?
It does, right? It eventually figures it out. Like 99% of the time, it just figures it out, actually. And so, but, you know, that's a thing that I think is instructive. Like, it's not exactly a fail. Like, you want to see it do that. And also, you want to see how long it takes for it to do this stuff. I mean, a lot of folks think, oh, this would be great for the contact center. And yes, it would be great for the contact center, except for the fact that it takes a while, right? So you can't have your contact center agent, you know, twiddling their thumbs while this thing is going on. So you got to think that one through.
But the insight that I love the most is that if you're dealing with legacy systems, it's going to take a while for someone to be like, let me fat finger this, you know, I'm going to type this thing in, you know. In this case, it's like,
right.
Yeah, use the computer use agent. It might take longer, but it will do it overnight, right? And then now people are freed up from the monotony of having to deal with the legacy system, which is cool.
Right.
So let's go through this. Some thoughts. Here it is. Here's from Paulo. So I designed the agent mode makes the job, and then I check the results.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, sort of, right? That's how it is. Although I think before you really put an agent into production, you have to check those results more holistically with an evaluation. That's right. I forgot you had Chang on this show before, and that is key, right? The agent evaluators and the new metrics in the agent evaluators, right? That is tool calling accuracy, like intent accuracy, task adherence, like did it actually just stay on task or did it start doing other random stuff? I have one of my YouTube videos. I have this YouTube video where I'm using a different type of computer use agent called browser use, which I think we posted in the links here. And in that YouTube video, my agent, I set it to buy me some sugar. And it tried a bunch of different sites. It failed on a couple of different sites. Some of the sites blocked it because it was like, are you a robot? And it was like, yes, I am a robot.
Because it cannot lie. It cannot tell a lie.
Right. But then in the end, it went really sideways where it started logging into Facebook for some reason. And I caught it on video and I actually posted it on YouTube because I was like, this is an example of how this could really go weird, right? And so when you think about these metrics, these new metrics in the agent evaluator, things like task adherence matter because task adherence, like it did start to go down the path of buying the sugar. It did add the sugar to the cart, but in that YouTube video, then suddenly it starts logging into Facebook. It's like, what? You know, that's not task adherence. That is not what I told you to do.
All right. So one of the cool things is we made this commentary of like a design pattern for showing the effort that is involved. Because the agent has two modes in my brain. It's like the effort that it uses to make stuff happen, and then the output of what it actually does. And that having those two sources to visualize is really cool as a design pattern for using these things. Your thoughts, Marco?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to watch. Now, in my little application, and I built this application myself, like I said, but in my little application, I showed the thought process, but it didn't show all of it because in reality, there are all the little interstitial things that it's doing. Wait, click. You know, it's like find this bounding box and stuff like that. Maybe I should have made it emit that stuff just so you could see it go by. But it's fascinating to watch. And sometimes it's like you're like, oh, come on, like the button is right there. It's like for any of you who have ever watched a usability test before, you ever been part of a
It's so
usability test for
stressful.
software and you're watching users struggle with it, and you're behind the glass back there and you're like, come on, the button's right there, click the button. It's just like that with these computer use agents where you're just like, come on.
It's right there. You can do it.
It's right
Here's a
there, come on.
question.
Anyway,
Here's a
yeah,
question from
go ahead.
Jose. Does it use the send keys API? It doesn't. You said it's using the actual RDP or VNC protocols to emit stuff, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, how exactly it's kind of abstracted from me because I was using an SDK that had the VNC stuff in it already, and so I didn't actually directly program the VNC stuff. I just basically kind of wired it all up together. But yeah, I mean, it's sending clicks and drags and all kinds of stuff like that.
I see. So the actual output of the CUA is move your mouse here, click here, and then you're just hooking it up to whatever SDK the provider like RDP or VNC.
That's right. You want me to share my
screen?
Let's
do
again?
it.
I can
let's
show you
take a look at that.
like.
Bonus. Bonus time. Here we go.
Bonus. All right. So bonus. This is as I said, this is the part of the kind of the log, the thought process that I did not emit in my little application. So this is what it's doing, right? It's like typing this stuff. It key presses enter and then it waits. And in between each one of these things, even though sometimes it explicitly says screenshot, in reality, every time it does anything, it's sending a screenshot. So, key press and it sends a screenshot and it waits. And then it, eventually it's like, okay, click this X and Y position on the screen. And so this is really what it was doing here while it was working.
I see. And you just hooked that stuff up to like VNC to do automation or RDP to do the automation.
Right. That's right.
Okay. Yeah. So this isn't as mystical. Like the thing I love about this show, by the way, not to toot our own horn, is that I love how we take the magic out of it, which enables us to bring more magic to our customers, I think.
Right. Now, if you give me just a second, could I bring a little magic back into it?
Yes.
Okay. Wait, I gotta show you something. Okay, check this out. So hold on. Let me get my mouse back. Hold on. Okay, take a second. Gaze upon my beautiful interface over here. Now, okay, I'll admit it's actually not that beautiful, but I want you to gaze upon it nonetheless because of the way that I wrote it. So watch this. I'm going to go into my little buffer over here. I'm going to open my chat. Let me make this bigger. And I am going to go down to the history. Yeah. Now, oh, that's my history. Come on, bring it back. Oh, no, that's a bummer. Okay, well, in any case, this is GitHub Copilot Agent. And you can see at the bottom here, I have it in agent mode.
Yeah.
Down here. And you'll find this just got rolled to VS Code, I think a week and a half ago, maybe less. So y'all can try this now. This is VS Code Insider that I'm using here because I always like to have the new stuff. And unfortunately, I've lost the original part of my history that I used to write this application. But when I first wrote it, I mean, it totally made this by itself. So I prompted it like this. I gave it a bunch of English language prompts, and it completely wrote this interface. Now, at first, though, when I first wrote it, it was not scaling the output. So it wasn't doing this thing, right? So, at first it was like stuck in the little. So I said, okay, make it so that the VNC output scales to the whole area. And then it wrote it noodles on this for like 5 minutes and it wrote it some more. So, I mean, this entire file, this whole whatever 400 some lines of code that I wrote here, well, I didn't write it. I vibe coded it with this thing. This is a great thing to kind of vibe code because, quick and dirty, gets it done. That's nice. I did this in like 10 minutes.
Dang it. We're going to add this back in. Hey, so here, I'm going to do a little cut here. So the show ended and then Marco showed me extra stuff. So we're going to put that back in and take a look at this. So, all right, now I'll edit that back in so that we can, and then, because that was actually really cool. I really liked looking at that. Well, Marco, it's been a pleasure being with you, my friend.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always
and we'll see you hopefully tomorrow. All right, buddy. Take care. All right, my friends. That was Marco. That was the first half of the show. We took a little bit of liberty and we overshot. But that's okay because I thought this stuff was really cool. All right, so we're going to do part 2 now of our episode. We're looking at Prompty vNext, and so this is not going to be an official episode because I don't have time to make it the full thing. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Prompty and the next version of Prompty. So let's go here and let me share my screen here so you can see that. And then we're going to go to Prompty, the GitHub repository here, so you can actually take a look at it. Prompty, if you want to go to the site, and we're still working on upgrading to the next version. Prompty.ai is awesome because it allows you to create an asset that is a runnable asset. And the specification makes it so that it's a known way to execute against LLM. So let me actually bring up some code here so you can take a look at it. So let me make sure I have everything in a kosher way. So I don't want to leak any keys to anybody. Okay. So let me bring this up here so you can take a look at Prompty, right? So let me restart this extension here. Prompty, and I'm still working on language servers for the vNext, so that's why you're seeing it being all upset. So here's what a Prompty file is, and what Prompty has changed for vNext, and in fact, I actually started writing a little bit of a doc for that. Why am I not able to move my mouse? Oh, okay, here we go. There is actually in the GitHub Actions here a little write-up that I did that goes through some of the new-ish stuff for Prompty, and I need to find it. I should have found it. Is it this one? Prompty vNext. No, this is the PR. It's in the PR. Here we go. So in this PR, you'll actually see what some of the new stuff is. And the cool thing with Prompty is that you're able to actually use the specification, which is just Markdown, and then write a prompt and then execute it. So this is the new version of the runtime. Notice that it's able to load this file up and execute against this. And the reason why is because it knows here is the model I need to connect to, Azure OpenAI GPT-4o Mini. These are the inputs that get passed in, and there's some sample declarations. Like the default is user, but if a sample is like, here's an example of one, and then when you're running it, raw, you can use this one, right? And then this AI assistant's job is to basically say support or sales, right? So here I said my tent is broken, yo. And looks like it's a support question. And then like if I change this, what are the best sleeping bags for winter? And then if I save that and then I run it, and I run it, you can see that it runs this thing too, and then it knows it's a sales question. So that's this thing. That's what Prompty is. It makes it so that when you're running against an LLM, it just works. So let me actually delete this so you can actually see this working in action. So here's the players. I hit play. Let me show you what's actually happening in the code underneath. So let me go to the run here, and this is the actual execution of it, right? When it ran it. The first thing it does is it loads the Prompty file, and it creates like an object version of this thing. And this object version basically says, here is the prompt, here is the instructions, right, with the gaps, and let me hit X. And then here are the slots that I need to fill out. Like, for example, it needs to know about like, oh, I need to know what this is if I'm going to run. I need to know what this thing is if I'm going to run. And so notice that this object is really cool. And what Prompty vNext does is when it loads the object, it now is able to reason about like, what do I need to execute this thing? So that's the first thing. The second part is the execution. So the load makes an object, execute actually executes it, but the execution does things in a couple of steps. And looks like the prepare, well, there's 4 steps, right? So, but looks like I need to fix, there's a bug there on the tracing. So notice that the prepare, what it does is it takes the prompt itself and it hydrates it with the actual values. So for example, the inputs are not there, but it merged the sample, and the sample said, hey, the thing that we're passing in is April and Kwang. And so those are the names that go in there. I can change this. Write a response to the user in markdown format there. So now when I change this particular thing, notice that it's going to use my name instead of sales and support, but looks like it's taking a bit longer. There you go. So notice it's like, hi April, and I literally just changed the prompt and then everything worked. And then when I ran it the second time, you can see that it actually did something a little bit different. So prepare, what it does is it hydrates the template and then creates the messages array. And so here's the messages array that you can take a look at here. So there's the role, you are an AI assistant, the blah, 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 you are helping April Kwang. Do you see how it just, that's the prepare bit. This part of a library is used in the Azure AI SDKs if you use Prompty. But the second part is the actual execution or the run of this particular thing. And what it does is it creates an Azure OpenAI constructor, and then it creates the chat. It does a completions.create with chat, and then it does a post process. So that's what the second one was. This is the other one. Notice that this one has like more answers, right? Sales and then more stuff. And so you can see that the run, the prepare had a different prompt, right? And because I hydrated that in. So that's what Prompty is doing. So the things that have changed about Prompty are a couple. So let's show you what those are. The first is this notion of input type checking. Prompty was a little loose when it came to type checking, but now what happens is if you do not merge samples, it will throw exceptions if you do not include values that are required. Otherwise, it will use the defaults. The other thing is that there is this role parameter thing now that we need to look out for, because the OpenAI SDK allows you to give you like a user, and then also you can pass this in as part of the messages array. And so the idea was like, oh, if you can pass anything, then you do that. So this is the Prompty boundary. So if you don't know what the Prompty boundary roles are, effectively these things create boundaries for the messages array when it parses it. Do you see that? Boop. So this says this is the start of the system message, and this is the start of the user message. So that's that thing. So that's the next innovation. There is also this notion of strict mode. So again, type checking for inputs. Here's a question. So you are a helpful assistant. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's not needed. Let's take it out. We're using tokens we don't need to. Strict mode makes it so that now this is a new version in Prompty. Strict mode makes it so that if you pass in a value that emits boundary things, like doing a prompt injection, and you're set to strict mode, it will throw exceptions. It'll be like, oh, you're trying to emit something that you're not allowed to do, like because of the pre-processing, the prepare step fills in these values before it parses it. It's essentially able to create an array and maybe re-inject a system message. Sometimes people want that, sometimes people don't. If you set strict mode to true, it will throw an exception on that. So that's what that is. And then there's this notion of a tools section for doing that. And then so the tools section, if you look at it, kind of looks like this, where you can pass in the actual tool. So the other thing that oh, by the way, this is what the tools look like, by the way, tools section. So if you were to run this thing, notice that Prompty, as when it's executing under just the chat variables, it'll just be like run these functions, right? So that's what the output looks like. Then the other thing is that we've added outputs. Outputs was there before, but now it actually enforces structured outputs. And so if the model version doesn't support structured outputs, then it will fail, right? But notice it's able to respond to this. Science going to the, we'll say book fair now, so you can see it changes it. Control S, run this thing here. You can see that now they're going to the book fair on Friday. They're going to go, let's say if they want to go on Flepter Day. Flepter Day is one of my favorite days of the year, of course. Let's see if this does anything. Notice that from the structured approach, it's able to do the thing. And look, I literally just made this up. So Flepter Day, right? So that's what the output section does. That output section does that. And then finally, there is this notion of an agent mode, where now you can actually, this new construct in Prompty called the thread, where if you keep running this thing in memory, it will just start adding the conversation history to the stack. And that's what that does. Okay, so that is my brief, super brief introduction to Prompty vNext. We'll do more structured learning on this one later on, but sadly, it's time for the walk-off music. All right, well, we've had another episode of the AI show. It's been fantastical. There was a couple of questions. Are you able to call the CUA programmatically? Say a task from agent. I don't see why not. As long as it's all hooked up, right? Sorry, it meant an action from an agent. Yeah, so to us, the way that I've been thinking about it is because agents can call functions, as you saw in the Prompty thing, that function can point to anything. And in fact, it can point to another agent. So yes, it can. Looking through more questions. What's happening tomorrow? Well, the next episode of the AI show is coming to you next week. Coming to you next week. 8:30 a.m. What's new in Azure AI Foundry with April 2025 edition with Steve Sweetman, who is going to be telling us what's the next bit of news. Oh, I remember I got to do like a social post for that. And then at the second half of the show, Semantic Kernel's agent framework with Sean Henry, my friend. I struggled with Semantic Kernel, but they're doing some good work. So we'll make sure to catch up with them and see what they've got in store. Semantic Kernel, the cool thing about Semantic Kernel is that it's available in C# and Python. So we'll take a look at that. So to answer your question, what's happening tomorrow? Those two things. That's next week. Oh, look at that. Ivana's here. It's so good to see you, my friend. Great show. Thank you. Ooh, .NET Conf. Yeah, we should. By the way, there is going to be a Prompty vNext in C#, calling it Prompty Core. And my friends over at Semantic Kernel, we're working on that together. So, yeah, they're good folks. Again, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We know your time is valuable here at the AI Show. So we thank you for your time. And again, if there are any questions or have any thoughts about AI, make sure to let us know. And if you ever want to come on, show something cool, we also want to do that. Thank you so much for watching. And hopefully we'll see you next time on this, the AI Show.